Hey everybody, my name's Ed Trevors. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm an Anglican priest serving in the beautiful parish of Christchurch-Shelburne that sits on the ancestral and on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This is the beginning of the year. I'm recording this at the beginning of the year. And I thought, what's the best way of starting off a brand new year? Blasphemy. So today, let's get a little blasphemous. In this talk, let's get a little blasphemous. Let's get a little crazy. Let's get a little wild. Let's say some things that maybe we need to hear, but we might have to think about. In 2020, one of the most profound books that I read was something that actually had been given to me like a decade ago. And every time I've tried to read it, I've never been able to do it. It's only a thin 120, 130 page book. But every time I've opened it in the past, I couldn't. It was too far-fetched. It was too out there. It was too wild for me. It was too provocative for me. It's a book called Illusions by Richard Bach. And in it, and I don't want to give it all away, the narrator, Richard, he comes in contact with a pilot. He becomes friends with a pilot. And this pilot goes on to tell him and prove to him that he's the Messiah. Now, he's not the Messiah. He's one of the Messiahs, one of many, one of a continuous line of Messiahs. It's a pretty wild concept, and there's a lots to it that I just wholeheartedly disagree with. But it does get the little hamster in my brain spinning real quick, real fast. In the gospel, Jesus tells his disciples, they see some of the things that he's been doing and some of the work that he's been doing. They hear his teaching. They've been with him for a few years, and he says to them, "You are going to do even greater things than these." Now, he's Jesus Christ. He's been healing and working miracles. He's been fighting with the Pharisees and putting them in their place. He's been teaching a gospel that is making every religious person in their region uncomfortable. He's associating with Romans and with Samaritans and with women and children, the poor, the criminals. And he tells them, these fishermen from Galilee, these former tax collectors, these failed theological students, he tells them that they are going to do even more than what he's done. Just let that sink in for a second. How is that even possible? How does the Messiah, the Son of God, expect a bunch of Galilean nobodies to do even more than he did? Now, the instinctual response is, well, there was only one of him sharing the message. There's 12 of them who are all going to share the message. True enough. But he wasn't just talking about his message. He was talking about something more. He was talking about the words, and he was talking about the work. So what if we Christians today, in our world, have gotten what it means to be a Christian wrong? What if we've gotten it almost backwards? Jesus, the Messiah, was there. He brings on a group of people. He teaches them. He trains them. He dies. He's taken out of the equation. They move on. Right? Worshiping him, teaching about him, praising him, doing miracles in his name, casting out demons in his name, teaching in the synagogues in his name. And because they're doing that, they also take on their disciples, and they teach those disciples to do the same thing. And this goes on generation after generation after generation after generation after generation until it gets to us. And then this generation, my generation of Christians, we see our Christianity, we see the exercise of our faith, we see the practice of our religion. It's going to church on Sunday morning. Reading the Bible, saying grace, praying on a regular basis, going to study groups. Whereas those initial disciples were elbow deep in the work, where they were getting their hands dirty, where they were in the mud, where Jesus asked them to be, our idea of following Jesus is relegated, is diminished to sitting in a chair or in a pew for an hour and a half every week, giving our money to the church every week, asking ourselves, what would Jesus do every week? What if being a follower of Jesus Christ actually looks more like being a carbon copy of the Messiah, of being out in the world as Jesus was out in the world? Not just in our teaching, but in our work. Not just in our words, but in our activity, in our connections, in our labors. What if this world, instead of having 2 billion followers of Jesus, what if we had 2 billion people who were acting like Jesus, truly acting like Jesus, not Jesus light, right? Not Jesus like Jesus, living sacrificially, loving sacrificially, offering compassion and mercy unconditionally, performing the work that Jesus performed relentlessly. What would the world be like? I mean, we know what the world's like with 2 billion followers. What would the world be like with 2 billion Jesuses? What would it be like with 2 billion honest to goodness Christians like the disciples were? What would that world be like? May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord's face be made to shine upon you. May the Lord offer you nothing but grace. May the Lord's countenance be lifted up to you. May you forever know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. And I pray that this year, this day, this moment, and for every moment that follows, we will endeavor to be Christ rather than to merely be followers. Amen.